The lecture hall fell silent as Commander Vec entered the room. His dark blue skin showed the scars of 40 years in military service. 3 deep marks ran across his face, souvenirs from battles the young cadets had only read about in history files. He moved slowly to the front of the chamber, his forearms carrying nothing but a single datapad. Cadet Hannah sat in the front row with her classmates. They whispered among themselves, eager and excited. Today was special. Today they would hear from a real war veteran. But not just any veteran. Commander Vec had fought in the Human Integration War, the conflict that ended almost 5 decades ago. Hannah looked at her friends and smiled. Humans were everywhere now. They ran shops on Kaura stations. They served as diplomats. They traded goods across the galaxy. Hannah had even shared a meal with a human family last year during Cultural Exchange Week. They seemed so ordinary, so peaceful, so weak compared to the mighty Kaurath Empire. The classroom held 200 cadets from across the galaxy. Kaurath warriors with their forearms and towering frames. Slight Vexian scouts with their quick reflexes. Heavy Torvak shock troops built like living tanks. All of them were the best and brightest of the Galactic Defense Academy. All of them were confident in their superiority. Vec stood at the podium and looked across the sea of young faces. His old eyes seemed sad somehow. He tapped his datapad once and the lights dimmed. Behind him, a holographic display flickered to life. "I know what you think of humans," Vec said. His voice was rough, like gravel being crushed. "You see them in the markets. You see them smile and trade. You see them building things and making peace. You think you understand them." He paused and let his words sink in. "You do not understand them at all." A few cadets shifted uncomfortably. Hannah frowned but said nothing. Vec touched his datapad again. The hologram showed a small vessel, barely the size of a Kaurath scout ship. It looked fragile, weak. The hull was pitted with micrometeorite damage. One of the engines looked like it had been repaired with spare parts. "This is the research vessel Morning Star," Vec continued. 47 years ago, my squadron encountered this ship at the edge of contested space. We were patrolling the outer reaches, enforcing the Emperor's claim to the Kiro Belt. This vessel had crossed into our territory. Hannah leaned forward. She had heard this story before, or versions of it. First contact with humans was covered in basic history class. It had been a simple misunderstanding, quickly resolved. Or so the official record said. Standard protocol was simple, Vec explained. We hailed the vessel. We ordered them to surrender for processing. We had 50 warships. They had 1 research boat with mining lasers and surveying equipment. The mathematics were clear. The hologram shifted. Now it showed 2 humans on a bridge. A man and a woman in plain gray uniforms. The man had short black hair and calm eyes. The woman stood beside him, her hand on a console, her expression alert. This is Captain Day, Vec said, pointing to the man. And this is Science Officer Yuna. They were the senior officers aboard Morning Star. One of the Torvak cadets laughed. 2 humans against 50 ships? They must have surrendered immediately. Vec's face did not change. Captain Day sent us a message. I still remember his exact words. He said, "We are scientists conducting legal research in unclaimed space. We recognize no authority here. We will not surrender." The classroom erupted in laughter. Even Hannah smiled. The audacity seemed ridiculous. Brave, perhaps, but ridiculous. Vec waited for the laughter to die down. We thought the same thing. My commander, Admiral Krell, was insulted. Here was a tiny vessel defying the entire Kaur Third Fleet. He ordered me to disable their engines and take them by force. The hologram shifted again, showing tactical displays and ship movements. I commanded the strike group personally. 5 warships against 1 research vessel. We locked weapons. We prepared to fire. And then, Vec paused. His eyes grew distant, remembering. And then the humans ran. Another cadet spoke up. They fled? Cowards, after all. No, Vec said quietly. Not cowards, survivors. There is a difference, and it took me 6 months to learn it. He tapped his datapad. The hologram showed a star chart with a red line weaving between systems, twisting and turning through asteroid fields and nebula clouds. For 6 months, we chased the morning star. Captain Day led us on a pursuit across 3 star systems. Every time we thought we had them cornered, they escaped. Every time we closed the distance, they found a way to slip away. Vec's voice grew harder. They flew through radiation storms that should have killed them. They hid in asteroid fields that should have crushed their ship. They pushed their engines past safety limits that should have caused reactor failure. But they survived. Always, they survived. Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. Something in Vic's voice told her this story would not end the way she expected. I lost 3 ships during that chase, Vic said. Not to weapons. To accidents. Debris fields the humans had seeded with explosive charges. False sensor readings that led my pilots into gravitational anomalies. Improvised mines made from survey equipment. He looked directly at Hannah. Admiral Krell ordered me to stop. He said the chase was beneath the dignity of the Kilrith Empire. But I refused. My pride was wounded. I wanted to catch them. I needed to catch them. The hologram froze on an image of the morning star, battered and smoking but still moving. That was humanity's first lesson to me, Vec said. Humans do not know when to quit. They do not surrender because the odds are against them. They do not stop because logic says they should die. They simply persist. The classroom was silent now. No one laughed. Tomorrow, Vec continued, I will tell you what happened when the war truly began. I will tell you about Hollow Point, about the siege that should have lasted 2 days, but lasted 7 months. About the humans who fought with farming tools and refused to yield. He turned off the hologram. The lights came back up. You think humans are weak because they are small, because they smile and trade and build. But I have seen what happens when you push them into a corner. I have seen what they become when they have no choice but to fight. Vec gathered his datapad and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped and looked back at the cadets. Learn well, young warriors. The galaxy is at peace because we learn to respect the humans. Never make the mistake of thinking that peace means they have forgotten how to wage war. The door closed behind him. Hannah sat in her seat, her confidence shaken. Around her, the other cadets were silent, their earlier arrogance gone. For the first time, Hannah wondered what horrors the old commander had seen. And for the first time, she feared learning the answer. Commander Vec returned the next day, and the lecture hall was packed. Word had spread about his first session. Cadets who had skipped the initial class now crowded into every available seat. Hannah arrived early to keep her spot in the front row. Vec entered without ceremony. He looked tired, as if reliving these memories cost him something precious. The holographic display activated before he even reached the podium, showing star charts and ship formations. The Kilrith military doctrine is simple. Vec began without preamble. Overwhelming force. Superior technology. Quick, decisive victories. We have conquered 47 star systems using this strategy. It has never failed us. He paused and looked at the cadets. Until we met the humans. The hologram zoomed in on a single ship. The morning star looked even worse than before. Hull plates were missing. One engine was clearly damaged. Debris trailed behind it like a comet's tail. After 3 months of pursuit, I reported to Admiral Krell, Vec said. I told him the humans were delaying tactics, nothing more. Eventually, they would run out of fuel, or food, or luck. The Admiral agreed. He assigned me more ships. 10 vessels now chased the Morning Star. A Vexian cadet raised a thin hand. Commander, why not just destroy them? Why chase? Pride, Vec admitted, and curiosity. We wanted to understand how such a small ship kept evading us. We wanted to capture their technology, study their tactics. The Emperor himself took interest in the chase. The hologram shifted, showing communication logs and tactical data. Captain Day was clever. Science Officer Yuna was brilliant. Together, they did things we thought impossible. They hid in nebula clouds that interfered with our sensors. They used gravity wells to slingshot past us at speeds their ship should not have survived. They scattered false transponder signals across entire systems. Vec's 4 hands moved across his datapad, bringing up incident reports. In month 4, they led us through an asteroid belt. We were cautious. Our sensors were active. But the humans had spent 2 days seeding the field with mining charges from their survey equipment. When we entered, they triggered the charges. The explosions created a chain reaction. We lost 2 ships. The room was silent except for the hum of the holographic display. My second officer called it luck, Vec continued. But it was not luck. It was planning. It was patience. While we chased them, they prepared. While we grew frustrated, they stayed calm. They turned their weakness into strategy. Hannah found herself taking notes without realizing it. This was not the story she had been taught. History said first contact was peaceful. It said the war started later, over resources and territory. No one had mentioned a 6-month chase. The worst part was not the losses, Vec said quietly. It was the exhaustion. You see, humans have a remarkable ability. They do not sleep the way we do. He pulled up biological data comparing Calrith and human sleep patterns. Calrith require 8 hours of rest every cycle. So do Vexians. Torvax need 12. But humans? They can split their sleep into small pieces. They work in shifts. While half the crew rests, the other half runs the ship. They can maintain this for weeks, months. The implications settled over the cadets like a heavy blanket. My crews grew tired. We rotated ships in and out of the pursuit, but it was never enough. The humans never stopped, never rested fully. They were always moving, always planning, always 3 steps ahead. Vec's voice took on a bitter edge. In month 5, Admiral Krell ordered me to abandon the pursuit. He said it was beneath the dignity of the Calrith Empire to chase a single research vessel across the galaxy. He said I was wasting resources on a pointless vendetta. The commander's eyes grew hard. I refused. I told him this was about more than 1 ship. This was about respect. About showing the humans that the Calrith Empire could not be defied. The hologram showed the final weeks of the chase. The Morning Star's path grew more erratic, more desperate. I was so close, Vec said. In the 6th month, we cornered them in the Vila system. There was nowhere to run. We had them trapped between 3 planets and a dying star. I hailed Captain Day personally. I offered him honorable surrender. I promised his crew would be treated well. Vec played the recording. Captain Day's face appeared on the hologram, calm despite the impossible situation. Commander Vec, the recorded Day said, you have chased us for 6 months. You have lost ships. You have exhausted your crews. And for what? To capture 24 scientists? To prove a point? Surrender, Vec's younger voice replied. You have fought well, but this is over. Captain Day smiled. It was not a happy smile. It is not over until we say it is over. That is what you do not understand about humans, Commander. We decide when we are finished." The recording ended. Vec stood silent for a moment. "And then they did something insane," he continued. Science Officer Yuna had calculated a flight path through the corona of the dying star. The radiation should have killed them. The heat should have melted their hull. But they modified their shields using principles we had never considered. They diverted all power from weapons and life support to the shields. The hologram showed the morning star's suicidal dive toward the star. We could not follow. Our ships were not designed for such maneuvers. We watched as they skimmed the corona, using the star's gravity to accelerate beyond our sensor range. When we finally picked up their trail again, they were 2 systems away. A Torvac cadet spoke up, his deep voice confused. "But why? Why not surrender? They could not win. They could not escape forever." Vec turned to face the cadet directly. "That is the question I asked Admiral Krell. He was furious with me for continuing the chase against orders. But he was also intrigued. He said something I will never forget." The old commander's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He said, "Vec, you are asking the wrong question. Humans do not fight to win. They fight to survive. And survival is not about victory. It is about lasting one more day, making one more choice, taking one more breath." Vec deactivated the hologram. The lights came up slowly. I finally cornered the morning star 3 weeks later. By then, they had reached the edge of human space. Reinforcements were coming for them. Captain Day sent me one final message before we broke off the pursuit. He played the message. Day looked exhausted but unbowed. "Commander Vec, thank you for the lesson. You taught us that the Kalrith Empire is powerful but not patient. You taught us how you think, how you fight, how you grow frustrated. This information will be valuable in the months to come." The cadet stirred uneasily. Hannah felt her blood run cold. "I did not understand then," Vec said. "But I understand now. I was not chasing them. I was not chasing them. They were studying us. Every tactic we used, every formation we tried, every frustrated communication we sent. They were learning." He looked across the silent cadets. When the war began in earnest 3 months later, the humans were ready. They knew our doctrine. They knew our weaknesses. And they knew beyond any doubt that we would underestimate them. Vec gathered his datapad. "Tomorrow I will tell you about Hollow Point, about the siege where 200 humans held a city against 2,000 Kalrith warriors. About the day I learned that humans do not just survive. They protect. They adapt. They turn their homes into weapons and their weakness into strength." He walked to the door, then paused. "And I will tell you about the moment I realized that humans were not the enemy we thought they were. They were far, far worse." The door closed. Hannah sat frozen, her notes forgotten. Around her, cadets whispered nervously. The humans they knew, the friendly traders and diplomats, suddenly seemed like masks hiding something terrible underneath. For the first time, Hannah wondered if peace was not a choice the humans made. Perhaps it was a gift they gave. And gifts could be taken back. On the 3rd day, Cadet Hannah arrived to find Commander Vec already waiting. He stood at the window, looking out at the training fields where young warriors practiced with weapons they would likely never use in real combat. The galaxy had been at peace for nearly 50 years. War was something from history files now, but Vec remembered. His scars remembered. Hollow Point was a colony world, Vec began without turning from the window. Population 50,000. Mostly farmers and miners. They grew food and extracted minerals. Nothing strategic. Nothing important. He finally turned to face the assembled cadets. The holographic display showed a pleasant-looking planet, green and blue, with small settlements scattered across one continent. The war had escalated beyond the chase of the Morning Star. Both sides wanted the Kiro Belt. Battles were fought in space. Ships were lost. And then the Emperor decided we needed to show the humans what defeat looked like. The hologram zoomed in on a small city. Simple buildings. Agricultural equipment. Civilian infrastructure. The orders were clear, Vec continued. Land-ground forces. Secure the colony. Force evacuation of civilians. Demonstrate Calra's superiority. Standard occupation protocol. He pulled up tactical data. I commanded 2,000 soldiers. The best warriors in the Third Army. We had armor support. Air superiority. Advanced weapons. Intelligence reports showed the colony had maybe 200 human defense forces. A Vexian cadet did the quick math. 10-to-1 odds. The battle should have lasted hours. Yes, Vex said simply. It should have. The hologram shifted, showing troop deployment patterns. We landed at dawn. 3 strike groups. 1 to secure the spaceport. 1 to occupy the city center. 1 to establish a perimeter. Textbook operation. Vex's face grew darker. By noon, I knew something was wrong. The spaceport team reported encountering defensive positions that should not exist. Trenches dug overnight. Barricades made from farming equipment. The humans were waiting for us. He pulled up a personnel file. A young human in a simple uniform looked back from the hologram. He had steady eyes and a determined jaw. This is Lieutenant Jin. He commanded the Human Defense Force at Hollow Point, 28 years old. Former colony security. No formal military training against off-world threats. Another file appeared beside Jin's. A woman with practical short hair and engineer's calluses on her hands. Sergeant Rin, combat engineer. She taught farmers to build fortifications using irrigation equipment and mining tools. A third file. A younger man, barely out of his teens, with a medic's insignia. Private Wu, field medic. He coordinated civilian resistance cells using old communication equipment that our sensors could not detect because it was so primitive. Vec closed the files. These 3 humans, with 200 barely trained defenders, held Hollow Point for 7 months. The room was dead silent. The first week we thought we were winning, Vec said. We pushed into the city. We took buildings. We established checkpoints. But the humans did not fight the way we expected. They did not form battle lines. They did not defend fixed positions. The hologram showed the city transforming day by day. They turned Hollow Point into a weapon. Sergeant Rin showed civilians how to collapse buildings to block our armor. They flooded streets using damaged water mains. They created kill zones using simple geometry and knowledge of their own city. Vec's voice grew strained. We took a school on day 3. It seemed empty, abandoned. We set up a command post. That night, the humans collapsed the entire structure using weakened support beams and gravity. 40 of my soldiers died. He paused, letting the number sink in. We took a hospital on day 7. It was full of wounded civilians. Protocol said we should secure it and provide medical aid. When my medics entered, they found the humans had booby-trapped the medicine storage with mining charges. They preferred to destroy their own supplies rather than let us use the facility. Hannah felt sick. This was not glorious combat. This was brutal, desperate survival. Lieutenant Jin was everywhere, Vec continued. We could never pin him down. He would attack from one sector, then appear in another an hour later. He used tunnels, civilian homes, underground passages that connected buildings. The entire city was his weapon. The hologram showed casualty reports climbing week by week. In month 2, I requested reinforcements. Admiral Krell denied the request. He said, 2,000 soldiers should be enough to pacify 50,000 civilians and 200 defenders. He called it embarrassing. Vec's hands clenched. In month 3, Private Wu coordinated a civilian uprising. Farmers attacked our supply lines with improvised weapons. Mining equipment became battering rams. Irrigation pumps became water cannons. The humans armed their entire population with tools turned into weapons. The display showed incident reports, ambush, sabotage, raids. We adapted our tactics. We became more aggressive. We stopped worrying about civilian casualties. And that was when we learned the true horror of fighting humans. Vec pulled up a specific incident report from month 4. We cornered a resistance cell in a residential block. 30 fighters. We surrounded them. We called for surrender. Lieutenant Jin himself was there. I spoke to him directly. An audio recording played. Vec's younger voice, tired and frustrated. Lieutenant, you are surrounded. Your people are outnumbered. Surrender now, and I promise you will be treated according to war conventions. Jin's voice came through clearly. Commander, have you noticed something? In 4 months, we have not surrendered a single position willingly. We have not abandoned our civilians. We have not run from superior forces. Have you asked yourself why? You are trapped, Vec's recorded voice replied. No, Jin said calmly. You are trapped. In our city. Fighting our people. On our terms. You brought soldiers to conquer. We are fighting for our homes. There is a difference, Commander. The recording ended. Vec looked at the silent cadets. Jin was right. We were trapped. Every day we stayed, we lost soldiers. Not in great battles. In small fights, ambush, accidents that were not accidents. The humans bled us slowly. In month 5, Sergeant Rin taught civilians to dig tunnels. Not escape tunnels. Attack tunnels. They dug under our positions and collapsed them from below. They moved supplies and fighters through networks we could not detect. The hologram showed the tunnel system spreading like roots under the city. In month 6, I lost a quarter of my force. Not in combat. To exhaustion. To stress. To the constant fear of attack from any direction at any time. My soldiers stopped sleeping. They jumped at shadows. The humans did not need to defeat us in battle. They just needed to make us afraid. Vec's voice dropped to a whisper. In month 7, reinforcements finally arrived. 3,000 fresh troops. We prepared for a final assault. We would level the city if necessary. End this nightmare. The hologram showed the final week of the siege. Troop movements. Artillery positions. The prepared bombardment. And then the humans did something I still do not fully understand, Vec said. They evacuated the civilians, all 50,000. Through tunnels they had spent 7 months digging. By hand, while fighting us. While defending their city. They had prepared an escape route for everyone. Hannah gasped. Other cadets murmured in disbelief. Lieutenant Jin sent me a final message before he left with the last of the civilians, Vec continued. He said, Commander Vec, you can have Hollow Point now. The buildings, the land, the empty city, but you cannot have our people. And that means you have won nothing. The hologram showed Kalrith forces entering an abandoned city. Buildings were damaged. Infrastructure was destroyed. But not a single human remained. We won the battle, Vec said bitterly. We planted our flag. We claimed the territory. And it meant nothing. The humans had escaped. The civilians were safe. And I had lost 800 soldiers to capture an empty city. He deactivated the display. That day, I understood something Admiral Krell already knew. Humans do not fight for territory. They do not fight for glory or honor or strategic advantage. They fight for each other, for their families, for their people. Vec looked at each cadet in turn. You can kill a human soldier. You can destroy a human city. But you cannot break a human who is protecting someone they love. They will find a way. They will adapt. They will survive. And they will make you pay for every meter of ground in blood and time and sanity. He walked to the door. Tomorrow I will tell you about the Ghost Fleet, about the battle where humans taught us that honor and tactics are not the same thing. About the day we learned that humans do not fight fair because fairness is a luxury they cannot afford. The door closed. Hannah sat shaking. She thought about the human family she had shared a meal with during cultural exchange. The father who had smiled and laughed. The mother who had taught her a recipe. The children who had played games. And she wondered what those people would become if someone threatened their home. She wondered if that kind father would dig tunnels with his bare hands. If that gentle mother would build weapons from farming tools. If those playing children would grow up to fight like Lieutenant Jin. For the first time, Hannah understood why the galaxy was at peace. Not because humans were weak, but because no one wanted to see what they became when pushed to desperation. Commander Vec looked older today. The weight of his memories seemed to press down on his shoulders as he entered the lecture hall. News of his stories had spread beyond the academy. Senior officers now sat in the back rows, listening. Generals who had fought in the war. Admirals who had commanded fleets. They came to remember, to bear witness. After Hollow Point, the war changed. Vec began. His voice was hoarse. The Emperor was furious. We had lost face. Lost soldiers. Lost time. He demanded a decisive victory. Something to break human morale and end the war quickly. The holographic display showed the Sol system. Earth hung in the center, blue and green and beautiful. The plan was simple. Vec continued. Assemble our greatest fleet. 500 warships. The 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets combined. Strike at the human homeworld. Force unconditional surrender. He pulled up intelligence reports. Our scouts reported only 120 human vessels defending Earth. We had superior numbers. Superior weapons. Superior training. Victory seemed certain. A familiar face appeared in the hologram. Admiral Krell, looking confident and proud. Admiral Krell commanded the operation. I was given the 3rd Fleet's vanguard. 40 ships. The honor guard that would lead the assault. Vec's expression was unreadable. I was being rewarded for Hollow Point. The Emperor called me a hero. He laughed bitterly. I did not feel like a hero. I felt like a man who had spent 7 months learning to fear humans. But I followed my orders. We entered the Sol system in force. 500 ships in perfect formation. The hologram shifted to show the beginning of the battle. Cowarth forces arranged in 3 massive groups. Human ships scattered across the system in defensive positions. The humans did not run. That surprised me. I expected them to retreat behind Earth's orbital defenses. Instead, they advanced to meet us. A new human face appeared. A woman in a captain's uniform, older than the others Vec had shown, with gray in her hair and sharp eyes. This is Captain Tay. She commanded the human defense fleet. 63 years old. Veteran of 3 colonial conflicts. She had been retired, but came back when the war started. Another file opened. A young man with glasses and the distracted look of someone who spent more time with machines than people. Engineer Sue, 25 years old. Artificial intelligence specialist. He had developed new combat protocols that the Cowarth Empire had never encountered. Vec closed the files. Together, they designed what humans called the Ghost Fleet Protocol. The hologram showed the battle beginning. Cowarth ships advanced. Human vessels moved to intercept. Everything looked normal. Standard naval engagement. We opened fire at maximum range, Vec said. 30 human ships in the vanguard engaged us. We expected them to retreat after the first volley. They did not. They held position and returned fire. The display showed the exchange. Ships on both sides taking damage. I destroyed 3 human vessels in the first hour. My fleet was performing perfectly. And then we noticed something wrong. Vec highlighted several human ships on the tactical display. These vessels were not maneuvering correctly. They moved in straight lines. They did not dodge. They did not use advanced tactics. They fought like training simulations. Like machines. His face grew grim. Because they were machines. Engineer Sue had created limited AI to control empty ships. Ghost ships that looked real on our sensors. Ships that appeared to have full crews, but were actually automated. The cadets stirred. AI warfare was controversial in the Cowarth Empire. Most species considered it dishonorable. We were fighting ghosts, Vec continued. And we did not know it. Admiral Krell ordered the fleet to split. Engage multiple targets. Divide and conquer. Standard tactics against a dispersed enemy. The hologram showed the Cowarth formation breaking into smaller groups. That was the trap, Vec said quietly. The ghost ships did not fight to win. They fought to delay. To separate us. To make us waste ammunition and energy on empty hulls. He pulled up casualty reports. Each ghost ship was programmed with one final order. When critically damaged, self-destruct and take the nearest Cowarth vessel with it. They turned themselves into guided missiles. The display showed ship after ship exploding, taking Cowarth vessels with them in calculated exchanges. We lost 20 ships in the first 3 hours. Not to superior tactics. To mathematics. The humans traded empty shells for our crewed vessels. 1 for 1. And they were winning the exchange. Vec's hands moved across the datapad, showing the battle from multiple angles. The real human fleet was hiding behind the moon. 120 actual warships with living crews. While we fought ghosts, they prepared their ambush. Captain Tay waited until our formation was completely broken. Until we were spread across the system chasing phantom targets. The hologram showed the moment the real human fleet revealed itself. 120 ships emerging from behind Earth's moon, moving in perfect coordination. They hit us from 6 directions at once, Vec said. Not to win. They could not win. We still had 300 ships remaining. But they did not need to win. They needed to stop us from reaching Earth. He zoomed in on specific engagements. The ghost ships were still fighting. Still delaying. Still exploding when damaged. And now the real fleet was targeting our command ships. Our carriers. Our strategic assets. Admiral Krell's voice came through the audio logs, frustrated and angry. All ships regroup. Ignore the smaller vessels. Focus on the real fleet. But it was too late. The Cowarth forces were scattered, confused, fighting on too many fronts. I engaged Captain Tay's ship directly, Vec said. Her vessel was damaged, outgunned. I had her trapped. I called for her surrender. The audio recording played. Vec's voice. Captain Tay, your tactics are clever but ultimately futile. You cannot win this battle. Surrender your fleet and Earth will be spared bombardment. Tay's voice came through, calm despite the chaos around her. Commander Vec, I am not trying to win. I am buying time. Every minute you waste here is another minute for Earth to prepare defenses. For reinforcements to arrive. For my people to live another day. You will lose eventually, Vec's recorded self replied. Perhaps, Tay said. But not today. And that is enough. The recording ended. Vec stood silent for a moment. She was right. While we fought the Ghost Fleet, Earth had been preparing. Orbital defenses were online. Ground forces were mobilized. and human reinforcements were arriving from other systems. The hologram showed new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. More human ships. Admiral Krell called for a full assault. Damn the cost. Break through and bombard Earth's surface. End this war. Vec's voice grew softer. But I had learned my lesson at Hollow Point. I knew what Krell did not. Humans do not surrender when the odds are against them. They fight harder. They find new ways to survive. And they make you pay for every victory in blood. He pulled up final battle statistics. We lost 180 ships in the Battle of Sol. The humans lost 90. Most of them were ghost ships. Empty automated vessels. They sacrificed machines to save lives. The numbers hung in the air, damning and clear. We could have continued the battle. We could have reached Earth, but what would we have gained? Another Hollow Point? Another 7-month siege? Another Pyrrhic victory that cost us everything? Vec deactivated the hologram. Admiral Krell withdrew the fleet. The Emperor was furious. But Krell understood what I had learned. You cannot defeat humans with conventional tactics. They do not fight for honor. They do not fight fair. They fight to survive. And survival has no rules. He looked at the assembled officers and cadets. That was humanity's lesson to the Calrith Empire. We fight for glory, for conquest, for the honor of victory. Humans fight because they have to, because their families are behind them, because surrender means death or slavery or worse. Vec walked slowly to the door. Tomorrow I will tell you how the war ended. Not with a great battle, not with surrender, but with understanding, with respect born from exhaustion and fear and the terrible realization that some enemies cannot be beaten, only survived. He paused at the threshold, and I will tell you why peace with humans is not weakness. It is wisdom, because a human at peace is a friend and ally. A human at war is a nightmare you cannot wake from. The door closed. In the silence that followed, Hana looked at her notes. Pages and pages of human tactics. Ghost ships. Sacrifice plays. Calculated losses. Somewhere on this station, humans lived and worked and laughed. They ran shops and taught classes and raised families. They seemed so normal. So like everyone else, but Hana knew now. Knew what they could become. What they would become if threatened. She had seen the face of Captain Tay, calm in the face of impossible odds. The determination of Lieutenant Jin, defending his home with farming tools. The cleverness of Engineer Sue, turning empty ships into weapons. Peace was not about trusting humans to be kind. It was about respecting what they became when kindness failed. And Hana finally understood why the veteran officers in the back row looked haunted. They remembered. They had seen the monsters that humans became when you gave them no choice. And they were grateful, so very grateful, that humanity had chosen to be friends instead. On the 5th and final day, Commander Vec entered the lecture hall to find it filled beyond capacity. Cadets stood along the walls. Officers lined the back. Even some civilian staff had come to hear the conclusion of his story. The old warrior looked at them all and saw his younger self in their faces, confident, certain, unbroken by the reality of what humans could do. He would fix that today. The war did not end with a battle. Vec began. His voice was steady, but his eyes were distant. It ended with exhaustion, with both sides bleeding and broken and unable to continue. The holographic display showed casualty numbers, ship losses, territory gained and lost, resources spent. The statistics painted a picture of mutual destruction. After the Battle of Sol, the Emperor wanted to continue. He called for more fleets, more soldiers, total mobilization of the Calrith Empire. Vec paused. Admiral Krell refused. Gasps echoed through the hall. Refusing the Emperor was treason. Death. Krell sent a message directly to the Imperial Court. I was there when he composed it. I remember every word. Vec's voice took on a formal tone. He wrote, Your Majesty, I have fought humans for 2 years. I have won battles and lost ships. I have conquered territory and buried thousands of warriors. And I have learned one truth that surpasses all others. Humans can be killed, but they cannot be defeated. The hologram showed Admiral Krell's face, older and wearier than in earlier recordings. The Emperor did not execute Krell. Instead, he asked him to explain. So Krell told the Imperial Court what I am telling you now. Vec pulled up images from across the war. The Morning Star running from 50 ships. Hollow Point's collapsed buildings. The Ghost Fleet's sacrificial tactics. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced. But they have something we lack. They remember. He let the word hang in the air. They remember every loss, every sacrifice, every fallen comrade. Where we Calrith seek glory and battle, humans seek meaning and survival. Where we plan for battles, they prepare for wars. Where we celebrate victories, they mourn their dead and learn from failure. Cadet Hannah raised her hand. Vec nodded to her. Commander, I do not understand. If they are not superior to us, how are they so dangerous? Vec smiled sadly. Because, Cadet, they do not need to be superior. They need only to be relentless. To adapt. To turn every weakness into strength and every loss into a lesson. He pulled up a final tactical analysis. After Sol, we studied human tactics. We found patterns. The Morning Star taught them how we chase. Hollow Point taught them how we occupy. Sol taught them how we wage fleet battles. Every engagement we won gave them information. Every battle we fought made them stronger. The display shifted to show post-war intelligence assessments. By the end, the humans had adapted to our entire military doctrine. They knew how we thought, how we fought, what frustrated us, what made us angry. They turned our own predictability into a weapon. Vec's voice grew quieter. Admiral Krell told the Emperor that continuing the war meant fighting an enemy that learned from every engagement, while we remained rigid in our tactics. An enemy that sacrificed machines and materials to preserve lives, while we sacrificed lives to preserve honor. An enemy that grew stronger with each battle, while we grew weaker. He paused. The Emperor listened. And for the first time in Calrith history, we sued for peace, not from weakness, but from wisdom. The hologram showed the peace negotiations. Calrith and human diplomats meeting on neutral ground. I was not there for the talks, but I know what we agreed to. Shared territories, trade agreements, cultural exchange, and most importantly, mutual respect. Vec looked directly at Hala. You asked what makes humans dangerous. Let me answer completely. Humans are dangerous because they are desperate for peace. They fight like demons so their children will not have to. They wage terrible wars so their grandchildren can live in safety. He pulled up civilian images of humans, families, children, workers building and creating. Every human you meet carries within them the potential. For what I faced at Hollow Point, what Captain Tay demonstrated. At Sol, what Captain Day showed during the chase. They are all warriors, Cadet. Every single one. Parent or child, scientist or farmer. When threatened, they become soldiers. When pushed, they become nightmares. The door to the lecture hall opened. Vec had arranged for this. He nodded to someone in the hallway. A human entered the room. He was older, perhaps 60, with gray hair and kind eyes. He wore simple civilian clothes and moved with the careful grace of someone who had seen combat but left it behind. The cadets stared. Some reached for weapons that were not there. "This is Ambassador Hyan," Vec said. He was a soldier during the war. He fought in Hollow Point. He served under Captain Tay at Seoul. Hyan smiled and gave a small bow of respect. "Thank you, Commander Vec. It is an honor." The cadets looked confused. This gentle old man was a warrior? This smiling diplomat had fought in the terrible battles Vec described? Hyan addressed the room. "I know what Commander Vec has told you. I know the stories sound impossible. A research vessel running for 6 months. A city defended for 7. Ghost ships sacrificing themselves." He paused. "But every word is true." He walked to stand beside Vec. "I was 19 when the war started. I had never fired a weapon in anger. I was a farming equipment technician in Hollow Point. When the Calrith came, Sergeant Rin taught me to turn irrigation pumps into weapons. Lieutenant Jin taught me to dig tunnels. Private Wu taught me to treat wounds." Hyan's expression grew distant. "I learned to fight because I had to. Because my family was behind me. Because surrender meant death or slavery. And when you fight for those reasons, you discover strengths you did not know you had." Another human entered the room. A woman, younger, perhaps 40, with sharp eyes and confident bearing. "This is Liaison Mina," Vec said. "She coordinates cultural exchange between humans and Calrith." Mina nodded to the assembly. "I was a child during the war. 10 years old when Hollow Point was sieged. My parents were among the civilians who escaped through the tunnels." She looked at the cadets with unwavering eyes. "I grew up hearing stories of the war, of what my people became when threatened. And I was taught one lesson above all others. We are terrifying in war because we are desperate for peace. We fight like demons so our children will not have to." Hyan spoke again. "Every human carries the memory of the war. We teach our children about it not to glorify violence, but to remind them of the cost. We remember what we became so we never have to become it again." He turned to face Vec. "Commander Vec was my enemy once. He besieged my home, killed my friends. But he also learned. He adapted. He respected us enough to fear us. And that fear became understanding. That understanding became peace." Vec nodded slowly. "Ambassador Hyan and I have worked together for 20 years. We teach in academies across the galaxy. Calrith students learn human history. Human students learn Calrith culture. We build bridges so the next generation never needs to dig trenches." He looked at Cadet Hana directly. "You asked what makes humans dangerous. Here is your answer. The most dangerous human is not the soldier on the battlefield. It is the parent protecting their family. The engineer solving an impossible problem. The diplomat who chooses peace when they could choose war." Ambassador Hyan added, "We are dangerous because we understand both. We know war's horror. We know peace's value. And we will defend one with the other." Vec deactivated the holographic display. "My final lesson to you all is this. Respect your allies. Fear your enemies. But most importantly, understand the difference. Humans are allies now. They teach us, trade with us, share meals and stories and friendship." His voice grew hard. "But never forget what they can become. Never mistake peace for weakness. Never assume that because they smile and trade that they have forgotten how to wage war. They remember, always, and that memory is what keeps the peace." Ambassador Hyan spoke to the silent room. "Commander Vec taught me to respect the Calrith. Your honor, your strength, your dedication. And I hope I have taught him to respect humans, our resilience, our adaptability, our desperate love for peace." Mina added, The galaxy does not need more warriors. It needs those who understand why we fight and why we stop. It needs those who respect the cost of war enough to pay the price of peace. Vec and Hyan stood together at the front of the hall. Former enemies. Current friends. Living proof that understanding could bridge even the widest gaps. "This concludes my lectures," Vec said. "You may return to your training. But remember what you have learned here. Remember the Morning Star. Remember Hollow Point. Remember the Ghost Fleet. And remember that the friendly humans you meet in the market or the classroom or the diplomatic corps all carry within them the same potential." Hyan smiled. "And remember that we choose friendship. Every day. Every interaction. We could be the warriors Vec described. But we choose to be teachers, traders, friends. That choice is our greatest strength." The two of them left together, talking quietly. An old Cowrath warrior and an old human diplomat, sharing stories and perhaps planning their next lesson. Hana sat in silence, her notes spread before her. 5 days of lectures. 5 lessons about humanity. And one final truth that settled over her like a weight. Peace was not the absence of capability. It was the choice to set capability aside.